And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. We're in Albany. We're in the state capitol. We're across the hallway from State Senator Joe Griffel's office and the state senator who we're talking to today. And one of the, we talked about revenue earlier, Senator, and one of the ways I think that the governor is hoping to come up with more money is by legalizing marijuana.
Well, I mean, it's another policy issue that they're trying to bring into the budget. I know there's been some consternation by a number of individuals. I convened a group in Utica with both sides of the issue. I'm from both sides of the issue. Thought it was we did 2 meetings, got to listen to proponents and opponents talk about the issue. And I don't know how this will play out, but I think the revenue projections are a problem. We saw that in gaming too. When you identify an issue and try to attach a monetary figure and try to use that as an enhancement for trying to get support for that particular issue, I think that's bad because we don't see those figures being recognized, particularly in gaming right now. In fact, in gaming it's become more problematic where you actually have a number of the casinos coming looking for help. This was sold to the community as a way to raise revenue, as to promote economic development, and to help education. And yet now you see some of these casinos coming back saying, we're struggling, so we may need you to state look at this differently. Same here with the marijuana issue. You're talking about a particular target financially, but I don't think you should rely on that. I think that's not a reason for people to be looking at incorporating something with an issue that has people on both sides.
What is your thought about legalizing it?
Well, I'm continuing to evaluate what is proposed and how it will be proposed. There's just a number of aspects to it right now. I don't know what the final proposal will look like because it's in the budget. It's not a standalone bill. I have some concerns, but I also am trying to listen to people. As I said, I don't want to do differently than I'm suggesting everyone else should do. You know, you need to hear people out, to hear different perspectives in order to then make an informed and intelligent decision.
Today's lobby day. Have you gotten lobbied by anybody in that industry?
We'll have meetings with people on both sides of the issue. I think the sheriffs were here, I think yesterday, did not see them, but we'll hear from people on both sides of the issue, yeah. Today we don't have anybody on the schedule when you're here. Yeah. There's a lot of higher ed today, and the YMCAs are here, so a lot of different things going on.
When you mentioned some casinos coming back to the state for help, Turning Stone is not one of them.
No, Turning Stone has done an extraordinary job, and in fact, unfortunately, they've been put at a disadvantage because of all these other casinos. That's something I warned about when we did this. The public had a right to vote, and I believe in that, and giving them that right to vote on legalizing gaming in New York. I was concerned about that and had some reservations about it. And the way it was presented concerned me. In fact, I put a bill in as a result of that the language that's presented to the people should not be sugar-coated. It should be a direct question so they understand what they're voting on. In this case, the question was, do you support increased economic activity, more funding for education? All of the things that are really not happening now. And then the site locations were terrible. Del Lago is a problem, in my opinion, because they said that was it's in the Finger Lakes, but they called it a Southern Tier designation. So that's where you lose faith in these commissions because why are they making decisions and how? And we question that. So Turning Stone has operated under what they've had to do for a long time, made their own investments, and now have this competition that exists. I think in some cases, unfair advantages have been given to some of the other casinos that are not really fulfilling what they said they could and should be able to do. So Turning Stone, to the best of my knowledge, and that's why they've expanded, which has caused us problems at Vernon Downs, because then Vernon Downs talks about how they've had a downturn because of all the new activity, so we've tried to go and support them. So I don't want to be hypocritical here, because while I don't believe we should be funding these casinos like Del Lago, we are going to continue to fight for some of these racinos and tracks that are in our area because I think they've been put at an unfair competitive disadvantage.
Speaking of site locations, we've got a site location in Utica for a new hospital, and that new hospital is dependent on money from the state. Was it $300 million?
Right.
And is that in this budget?
It's carried over, and the money is there. It was something that we fought hard for and were able to achieve working with the mayor, the county executive, then Assemblyman Brindisi and now Assemblywoman Buttonshine. I think it's been a real team effort working to ensure that that money is delivered to the Greater Mohawk Valley healthcare system. And I think everything is, from what I read and hear, moving forward, and that money will be there.
If you got some priorities this legislative session, you're going to go, how late will you go? And the session typically goes till
June. So we're here anywhere from 2 to 4 days a week, and we'll be here more like the 4 days a week. And there'll be a lot to deal with. This part of the session will be dominated predominantly by the budget. And then we'll turn to the next stage on focus on legislation, even though legislation is also being acted upon during this time period. So my priorities are, and I think we're still losing focus on the exodus from the state. When you look at statistics, and now we'll have a census being conducted, we continue to lead the nation in outward migration. That should be a wake-up call, that we're losing population and we're losing talented people. So we need to do things differently. We got to accept that and appreciate that and change the course of that, and that's done by, in my opinion, significant tax reduction, regulatory relief and reform, mandate relief and reform, and addressing high energy costs. So if you can get a handle on taxes, energy costs, get some of these regulations off from businesses and mandates off from communities and school districts, I think we become a more competitive state. So there should be some focus on economics and affordability, and I don't believe that's the case right now, unfortunately.
I was reading an article the other day. It said, don't just blame the weather in New York State.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. When will we get the first indication of what New York State has done population-wise from this coming up census?
Probably not till 2021. I mean, the census is conducted throughout the course of 2020. It's all compiled. That will also have an effect and an impact on redistricting for Congress as well as the state legislature, and then later trickles down to local governments. So we won't know, but it's important that everybody participate in the census. I know Assemblywoman Buttonshine and I and the county executive have been advocating to get a census location in Utica. They did that before, but thus far they have not. So we're going to continue to push and ask our federal representatives to continue to engage to try. It's not enough to put these in the major metropolitan areas. They should go into areas like Utica, Rome, particularly when you look at the refugee community, and we want to make sure people are counted because it means so much relative to federal aid as well as representation.
Thanks for coming by.
It's always a pleasure to have you and be with you, and thanks for coming to Albany.
Thank you. Well, I'd like coming down here. Anyway, we're going to do something extra on cnyhomepage.com.
We'll stick around.
The senator is good enough to stick around for a few more minutes. So if you want to go to cnyhomepage.com right now, we'll continue the conversation over there. If not, we'll see you next time, everybody.